It has been called one of the most bizarre murder investigations in Australia's history. It was 1989. Thomas Kiers' wife Jean went missing. 2 years later, the body of Thomas's second wife, Rosalina, was found strangled and charred. A coincidence or bad luck, as Thomas described it? Former detective Peter Seymour was involved in the investigations right from the start. He's now written a book called 7 Bones about this pursuit for justice. He joins me this morning with Christine Strachan, who's the mother of Thomas's first wife, Jean. Good morning to you, Christine.
Good morning.
Hi, Peter.
Good morning.
As I mentioned, you were the detective on this from 1989 when it first, the crime was first discovered. How did it all start and where did you go?
Well, Jean was reported missing as a missing person. I came across it when a missing person file from the missing persons unit came to Mount Druitt Police Station. I had to go out and interview her husband and family to see if there was any fresh information that may lead to her whereabouts. So that's when I first met Thomas Kiers.
When your daughter went missing, what happened, Christine? What did you think? Was this unusual for her?
Very unusual, but he kept telling me that she ran away with somebody else, so I wanted to believe that rather than to believe something else. I don't know, I just felt terrible.
So her husband kept telling you, she's calling me, but she doesn't want to come back, she's with someone else?
Yes, he kept telling me that, yeah.
Did you ever believe that?
I believed it until they found the bones, and then what else can you believe?
He's charged. What happens then?
Well, in 1991 I got called back to the house because his second wife Rosalina's body was found strangled and burnt in the house. I went back there not knowing he'd remarried, so when I went to the scene I believed it was his first wife Jean whose body was inside the house until I got told that he'd remarried. That's when the alarm bells went off, that we've got a dead second wife and a missing first wife. So it then meant the investigation into Jean's disappearance started all over again.
And what progress did you make then?
Well,
because you couldn't make any progress beforehand.
No. We spoke to a number of witnesses, neighbours. We did a search warrant at the house, dug up the backyard but didn't find anything initially. And it wasn't until a prison informant came forward after Thomas had spoken to or opened up to a prison inmate while he was trying to get his bail on Rosalina's murder that we got information that he'd buried Jean under the house. So we got a second search warrant, went and dug under the house, and that's where we found 7 bones.
7 bones. And we must remember in the early 90s, DNA testing was a very new procedure. How did you have to go with that?
Well, initially took those bones down to Melbourne, to the forensic laboratories there, but they couldn't duplicate the results. And I was told by the forensic professor down there that the place to take the bones, if we wanted to get the best DNA testing available, was to America. And it was some years later that finally the bones did end up in America, where 2 scientists confirmed that the DNA matched the blood from the DNA from the parents.
It would be hard to, I guess, for you, Christine, to explain how you felt when those bones were finally identified as your daughter's.
Yeah, well, I was expecting it when they saw when they found the bones, but it was hard. Yes, it was hard. But I thought now they're going to do something, finally, because for years they didn't do nothing. So
from Jean missing in '88. The trial started when, and when was he finally convicted? Because there were several appeals. It was like 1989 to 2004 he was finally convicted. That must be frustrating from a detective's point of view.
It is. You get the initial guilty conviction and it's a big relief, and also a relief for the family too. And then to then get told that due to a technicality, and in this case the DNA testing addressed by the judge to the jurors on how to interpret the DNA evidence was wrong. There was an error made there, so to get an
appeal happens?
And then you've got to go back to the family and try and explain that, knowing that they've got to suffer the anguish of going through another appeal, that it's not over.
And then it happens again. This is like 3 times. But finally convicted in 2004 from something in 1988.
That's right. It's a long time.
And 7 bones is clearly, as the title of the book explains, that was sent to America. And we must make mention that he was in fact acquitted of his second wife's murder,
That's
Rosalina.
right. That's right.
As a detective, how does that sit with you?
Well, it's a decision made by the jury. We don't know what goes on in the jury room, what their deliberations are, but it's for police, we firmly believe we had sufficient evidence, but the decision went the other way, and we have to live with that. We have to accept that.
Well, former Detective Peter Seymour, work well done, and well done with the book. And Christine Strachan, we thank you very much this morning for being with us.
Thank you.
We've got more coming up, but this is for you.